In the past few years, the presence of conspiracy theories has become far more prevalent in the landscape of American politics. It seems like a new character is always popping out of the woodwork to spread the word about secret satanic cabals or injections containing poisonous microchips, no matter how ludicrous their claims might be. But while many of these figures focus their talking points on the United States, conspiracies have no borders, and the influence of some have spread far beyond their country of origin. That brings us to the summer of 2021, when a new voice emerged among these theorists, one that claimed to hold an entirely new political position. That voice belonged to none other than Romana Didulo, a British Columbia-based woman who gained a following of thousands under the self-declared title of the Queen of Canada. While fact-checking websites were quick to remind everyone that she held no actual power over the country, the name stuck, and her followers proved to be as devoted to her message as medieval knights. Those proclamations were primarily oriented around the global issues that started in 2020, and she showed no sign of mercy for medical professionals who were dealing with them. In a video uploaded to her Telegram account, Didulo called for doctors and nurses to receive, quote, 2 bullets to the forehead for each child that they harmed as a result of injecting this experimental injection. As you can tell, she did not have a very positive view of COVID-19 vaccinations. And as it turns out, many people agreed with this extreme messaging, but the response was not limited to the internet posts. Under Didulo's direction, her Canadian followers began to harass local businesses, governments, police forces, and any other organizations involved in combating the global disease with cease and desist notices. One group in Alberta even walked onto the grounds of an elementary school while classes were going on to hand out notices and anti-vax flyers. Of course, they were kicked off of the grounds, with 2 people receiving trespassing tickets from the local RCMP, which only deepened the distrust between the conspirators and the government. Didulo warned that anyone who violated the orders of her followers would be executed, and although she had no real way of delivering on that promise, her believers continued to rally around her slogan of peace, prosperity, or perish. As the Queen's influence continued to spread, many began to question her origins and how she ended up at the point where she believed herself to be the judge, jury, and executioner of any Canadians who disagreed with her. While Didulo claimed that the former Queen, Elizabeth II, had been executed for war crimes, several months before her actual death I might add, the only organization she had any affiliation with was an online political party known as the Canada First Party of Canada. The party had not been officially registered anywhere, but it was incorporated by Didulo herself in 2020. This was the latest of many businesses she had tried to get off the ground, most of which were shuttered due to her failure to pay taxes. The Queen didn't pivot into popular conspiracy theory talking points until a year later, where she found far more success. We'll learn more about how she somehow started an entire movement after a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever had a deal with a company auto-charging you for something you never even agreed to pay for and then had to go through the hassle of getting it reversed if you noticed it at all? Well, I know I've been there plenty of times, but luckily today's sponsor, Rocket Money, can help. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. This app offers a suite of services, including keeping an eye on who's charging you money for things and notify you if it doesn't seem to add up. On top of that, if you show it your utility bills, it might be able to negotiate the rates down for you, including that of your internet or phone. Even if it's just saving you a few dollars here or there, that can add up to hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year. And that's money that you can be putting towards retirement or some other goal in your life. And with that extra money you're keeping, Rocket Money will allow you to budget it better so you're not overspending on things you don't want to spend on.
Rocket Money has helped save its customers $740 a year,
with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So to join the 5 million people that have already successfully used the app, I suggest clicking the link down below, rocketmoney.com/TGFM. Again, if you click the link down in the description below, you'll be able to get started for absolutely free. I highly recommend you try it out because you are probably overspending somewhere.
Despite the fact that Didulo had shown no actual evidence of the tribunals or executions she claimed to be holding, her followers believed that it was all true, and supported her calls for death with joy and relief. These followers came from a variety of conspiracy communities, but the Queen's methods and perspectives took a general deal of inspiration from the sovereign citizens movement, composed of people who believe that laws do not apply to them, especially ones related to taxes.
Am I being detained?
Are you educated?
Am I being detained?
Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
The cease and desist letters turned out to be just the first step in the new monarch's reign. In November 2021, the Queen made her wishes regarding injections even more explicit, calling on her followers to shoot and kill anyone who would inoculate a child under the coded phrase, duck hunting season. The ducks in question were healthcare workers, all of whom would be subjected to execution by the Kingdom of Canada's military. A force that, like many of Didulo's talking points, had no real definition. She also called on her American followers to invade Canada and assist with the execution of these traitors, but thankfully most of these followers supported her requests only in theory. As a result of these posts, Didulo claimed that her home had been raided by RCMP officers with a search warrant, while she was taken to a Royal Jubilee hospital in Victoria for a psych evaluation, where she was allegedly cleared by a psychologist. The RCMP did not confirm or deny that these events took place. On December 2nd, the police came back into Didulo's orbit when one of her followers in Quebec was arrested after posting a duck hunting threat towards his daughter's school. After this, Romana publicly backpedaled on the hunting idea. But the threat and the discussion around it was left up on Telegram, where her followers continued to support it and started to show signs of impatience with how slowly her revolution was moving. One user who claimed to be from Ottawa Valley even asked when the community would begin performing citizen arrests on those who were inoculating children. At this point, extremism experts started to call Didulo's rhetoric concerning, given that she was instructing her followers to use public venues to hold all traitors until they could be executed by firing squad or hanging. This label was not an exaggeration, but the rhetoric only got more extreme from there. On February 6, 2022, a Telegram post from the Queen instructed her followers to refuse any illegal migrant caravans from South America to enter Canada, and any who did not make it through were to be labeled as invaders and occupiers, who were also to be shot on sight. Her followers showed an overwhelmingly positive response to this idea, with some calling directly for the death of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. At this point, Didulo had established herself as a clear figurehead in her cult-like following, not just another theorist, but a leader that people were willing to follow into action. But just like so many other conspirators before her, those who had invested in her message had to stay loyal out of the hope that she might one day deliver on her promises. While the detainments and public executions that Romana endlessly posted about never came to pass, her messaging did not slow down. Her next target, which she outlined in one of her many royal decree posts, was taxes. She encouraged her followers to stop paying their bills for electricity, water, and even mortgages, declaring those services free. However, her followers soon found the idea only worked in theory, and had their power shut off or received bills that skyrocketed in costs. Those who reached out to their queen for answers or support were met with silence, and found their beliefs being mocked when they tried to get help from outside the community. Many of Didulo's followers were vulnerable people, including seniors on fixed incomes, and the decision to leave their bills unpaid had serious ramifications. In early 2023, one Alberta-based follower had her house foreclosed upon, after refusing to pay her mortgage, resulting in her family being forcibly removed from their property and left to face the Canadian winter without any of their belongings. Even after months of requests from the affected parties, the Queen offered no response. By the summer of 2022, while she was still being inundated with requests for financial help from her followers, Didulo had already embarked on a new journey. You see, one of her followers had gifted her an RV, one of a fleet of 4 that she used to travel across Canada for months, and spread the word about her monarchy. In June, she announced that she had become leader of the world, although this claim was no more legitimate than the others. Many more decrees followed, ranging from declaring Victoria the new capital of Canada, to raising the age of consent to 24. But even as so many of them were left in financial ruin by her anti-tax orders, the Queen and her entourage still insisted that her followers should pay for the RVs. Many did so without question, raising more than $100,000 while putting their own lives and security at risk. The tension between Didulo's fanbase and law enforcement peaked on August 13th, when she arrived in the city of Peterborough and ordered her subjects to arrest the local police officers. When this plan was put into action by a group led by local resident Frank Curtin, the only arrests made were by the police, who took 3 of Didulo's followers into custody. In the days that followed, 3 more arrests were made against those who were seen assaulting officers and counter-protesters. In response to these events, the mayor of Peterborough called Didulo and her followers quads. And during this disastrous rally, Didulo herself stayed far away from the action in her RV, where she handed out sardines to her hungry followers, but offered no other kind of support. Even in the face of such monumental failures, support for the Queen of Canada remained strong and resolute. She even accumulated a real-world volunteer staff of 12 people who accompanied her on her journey, having abandoned their day-to-day lives for the honor of serving her. As more information about this staff was unearthed, it was revealed that they were expected to shop and cook for Didulo, with one former follower telling Vice News that the Queen had once woken her up at 4 a.m. to operate her hotel's coffee machine. Most of the information about the inner workings of the Queen's court came from supporters who had grown tired of their leader's treatment of them. One such follower described an environment of non-stop abuse, with sleep and proper meals being withheld, while Didulo would tell anyone who complained that that was part of the experience. Like so many other monarchs before her, the power was going to the Queen's head, and anyone who had spoken out against her methods and mission was deemed to be a traitor, and promised a death sentence. Any action that was taken without her explicit permission was met with more threats of death from Didulo's non-existent military. But since so many of her followers had been alienated from their friends and family due to their devotion to her cause, they had nowhere else to turn. At this point, further cracks on Didulo's reign started to appear. Even as she expanded her reaches to Australia, the UK, and the US, appointing new royals at every turn and starting feuds with almost all of them, she encountered more obstacles, most of which were created by her own actions. In September 2022, a video of the prominent American political consultant and lobbyist Roger Stone was posted to a fake account on Telegram. The video showed him delivering a message of support for Didulo, but Stone himself quickly emerged to call the video a scam, saying that it was a cameo commission that had been repurposed. It was never confirmed who uploaded the video, but many speculated that Didulo was behind it in a desperate attempt to portray more mainstream support for her movement. Still, almost $6,000 was raised based on this fake video, and soon after it was revealed that Didulo had been using her followers' bank accounts, sometimes without their permission, to raise and manage funds. The convoy of RVs had become her home, and the only thing keeping it afloat was donations. Even when they were faced with realities of how their queen was scamming them, the money didn't stop flowing. But soon, even Didulo's vehicle was under threat. In October, the family who had rented their RV to her convoy said that the Queen had voided their rental contract and wasn't answering any of the requests about returning the vehicle. Believe it or not, Didulo had lied about where she intended to take the RV and had racked up several thousands of dollars worth of damage during her cross-country tour. At one point, one of the Queen's followers discovered that the RV's panel box had been burnt during the drive, a fire hazard that might have killed everyone inside. He, alongside his wife, abandoned the journey soon after, and were quickly labeled as traitors who deserved execution by those who stayed loyal. Eventually, Didulo abandoned the vehicle near a Manitoba gas station, leaving it thoroughly broken and full of empty sardine cans. As 2023 rolled around, the Queen's messaging has stayed largely the same. Once again, she encouraged her followers to shoot any migrants entering the country, and she even began producing her own currency, while requesting that her followers continue donating real money so she could print more. In the middle of March, her Telegram account was marked as fake by the platform, and she responded by saying this label only further legitimized her royal title. In September, they set up shop at an old abandoned school in the village of Richmond. As could probably be expected, the locals were less than pleased with this development. Many of them decided to protest the group's arrival, allegedly resulting in them receiving violent threats from Didulo's followers via email. This was enough for Richmond's mayor, Brad Miller, to ask the federal government to assist in the situation, although they were unable to do anything. Only a couple of months later, though, the Queen of Canada and her cult were forced to leave the school, at least briefly. During one of her many live streams, her critics noticed something interesting in the background, a heater propped up by a propane tank. Seeing as this was a major fire code violation, it was exactly the sort of thing the mayor had been looking for in order to get rid of the village's problem. The fire chief was soon dispatched to the scene, alongside a building inspector and a bylaw officer. Despite the fact that Didulo and her followers did not allow them to enter the building, they quickly loaded up their RV and went elsewhere. While this may have seemed like a victory at first, her opponents were disappointed to find out that the caravan had only traveled about 11 kilometers outside of town, to a small patch of unused farmland. And it was only a couple of weeks later that they went right back to living in the school after the violation had been rectified, proving that no matter how much Canadians may not want her around, their self-proclaimed queen is here to stay.